Residents there, but not anymore because of the shelling that it's been taking this morning. We woke up to the sound of tank fire and incoming fire, possibly artillery, possibly from a ship out in the Mediterranean. And as you mentioned, there was also a jet shot down just south of our hotel, the Ouzo Hotel, on the southern edge of Benghazi. We saw the jet flying over the hotel. There was anti-aircraft fire that hit the jet, and then it went down on fire, hit the ground in a crowded neighborhood, and exploded in a ball of flame and a huge cloud of smoke. Again, there are tanks, Libyan army tanks, now in the city of Benghazi, despite Gaddafi's pledge that he would observe the no-fly zone and not move his troops into the city, which is considered a opposition stronghold. Those tanks have, in fact, moved into the city of Benghazi and have been shelling targets there, including rebel fighter positions. There are also rebel tanks that are returning fire. We saw that for ourselves. And there are other rebel positions that are trying to combat these troops from Gaddafi's army that are now in the city of Benghazi. It's important to note, as far as that jet is concerned, we don't know if that jet was flown by opposition fighters or whether it was flown by the Libyan army in direct violation of the UN resolution for the no-fly zone. It's possible, we know the rebels had jets, it's possible they were flying their own jet, trying to target those Libyan army tanks when it was shot down. It's also quite possible that it was one of Gaddafi's jets aiming for targets in the city. We also believe that the hotel we were in, which was filled with journalists, the Ouzo Hotel, may have been a target of those tanks. And you may hear gunfire behind me. We believe it's celebratory gunfire. There's a pretty chaotic scene here as people move out of the city, and there are, in fact, opposition fighters with checkpoints up and down this road, celebrating still the fact that they believe victory is at hand, even though Benghazi is under attack and being invaded by Gaddafi's army. One other note, very, very compelling scenes along this road as we left the city of young men stopping vehicles not to check them, but to hand out bottles of water, to offer housing in local communities, and to offer money even if people needed the assistance. They're giving them directions, telling them to stay off the desert road, which is considered dangerous at this hour, and telling them to keep on moving and flashing victory signs, guys. They do believe that this war will be won, that they will win this war against Gaddafi. But right now, again, Benghazi, as far as we know, is under attack.
And Rick Leventhal, we'll get one question for you quickly, because I know that rebels are concerned, and we've been hearing reports this morning wondering where the international community is. We were hearing reports that French and British jets were headed to the region to start those air patrols. We're also hearing, of course, that the United States sending warships to that region as well. Have any of them arrived? Have you seen any signs of this international presence yet?
The only ship that we saw, we believe, was a Libyan Navy vessel. The only jets we saw, we believe, belong to the Libyan military or to the rebels. If there are international flights coming this way, if there are NATO jets coming this way, they're going to have a challenge ahead of them. Obviously, their primary targets were radar sites, anti-aircraft positions, Libyan military positions that might threaten the planes and the pilots flying for NATO. If they have tanks in the city that are targeting civilians, those are legitimate targets for NATO. But the question is, can they safely shoot at tanks that are now in the city limits of Benghazi, where we believe there are still civilians living and hunkering down during this battle?
Rick, are the Libyan independents or rebel forces and civilians there aware of the international force that will be coming to assist them, at least from the air?
Absolutely. They certainly know about the no-fly zone being established, and they've been celebrating the fact that it was established. The night that it occurred, it was about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning when they all hit the streets and started waving flags and firing weapons in the air and flashing victory signs. But I got to tell you, the next day and that night was very tense because of the reports coming in that despite the no-fly zone, despite this alleged ceasefire, Gaddafi's troops were advancing on Benghazi. And in fact, that proved to be the case, because this morning the tanks entered the southern edge of the city. These Soviet-made T-72 tanks opening fire on targets, hitting a bridge, hitting an area near the hotel, and honestly, we don't know where else they've been shooting, but we did see plumes of smoke from the southern edge of the city rising from what appear to be heavily populated areas.
Well, Rick Leventhal, it is so valuable to us to have you there on the ground telling us what's really going on as opposed to what Gaddafi is saying. We'll check back in with you throughout the show. Be careful, okay?